Welcome to the Budget Mom YouTube channel. I'm Kamika Love from thebudgetmom.com, and today we are doing a full September budget overview. So this is the time where you're going to be able to see the full budget by paycheck method really come to life. It's the calendar method, the paycheck method, and the cash envelope method. You're also going to see today all of the different savings that I have planned to use in September, like my lovely back to school envelope for my son. I know you might be saying, well, Miko, it's a little bit late to be using your back to school envelope. Actually, this is the perfect time. So this is where a lot of things go on super clearance, especially the things that I need to find for him. Most of his school supplies are taken care of. It's mainly he needs gym shoes. We need to get new underwear. I need to go through his sock drawer. Oh my. It's a mess. But another thing we're going to be talking about is stuffing my cash envelopes. I did have one cash envelope where I'm going to be rolling over into the new pay period and the new cash envelopes that I'm going to be using. So let's get started on my September budget overview. So right now you're looking at my September budget calendar, and I am a paycheck budgeter. But for the longest time, I was getting paid twice a month on the 5th and the 20th. And after I left my full-time job, I actually became self-employed, and now I pay myself once a month on the 1st of every month. So using the budget by paycheck method, you should be creating a new budget every single time you get paid. Whether that's twice a month, whether that's bi-weekly, whether that's monthly, it's still a budget by paycheck method. So for my budget calendars, the first thing that I like to put down is my monthly expenses. These are your regular monthly expenses that happen like clockwork. We do have the September savings challenge that we're working on, and that's called Decrease Your Bills September. I am challenging you to save money on the bills that you are already paying. So it's not about finding anywhere in your budget to cut expenses when it comes to your variable spending or going out and getting a second job to produce more income. It's about looking at the bills you feel you have to pay, and you may have to pay them, but you may not have to pay the amount that you think you do. So it's all about decreasing your bills. And as you can see in September, I'm going to focus on two bills, decreasing two of these bills, my car insurance and my Comcast. Now, if you're not familiar with Comcast, that's my cable and internet provider. Those are two great bills to start with because I feel like you can really make some leeway and decrease a lot when it comes to those bills. So we'll be talking about that here in a second. But I get my regular expenses on my budget calendar, and that's here highlighted here in red. I have my appointments like doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, and now that school is about to be back in full swing, it might also include different appointments that you have going on for school activities. And that's highlighted here in purple. I also have events on this calendar. Now I am traveling 3 weeks out of September. Yes, it's going to be crazy, but I do have that on my calendar now. All 3 trips in the month of September are completely business trips, which means I'm not using personal income. I will be using business income to get those deductions for September. But I'm going to Washington, D.C., New York, and I have a little surprise that we're going to be announcing here very soon on my Instagram where we're going in the 3rd week of September. But that's also on there. So if you're traveling, if you're going on vacation, make sure you get that on your calendar so you know you have to include it in your budget or how you're going to organize that for your sinking funds or your savings accounts that you'll be using for that trip. I also put down my payday, and holidays are highlighted here in yellow. The whole point of the budget calendar step in my process is a lot of the time when you think about budget, you think about just paying bills, but it's so much more than that. You need to be prepared for all expenses in the month, appointments, holidays, events, dinners with friends, weddings, anything that you need to spend money on should be on your budget calendar, because then you're going to use your budget calendar to create your budget. So after everything is on your budget calendar, you need to decide what expenses you're going to pay with what paycheck. Now, for me, it's really easy because all of my expenses are paid for that month with my budget because I get paid once a month. But if you come back to the budget calendar and let me explain this, one of the reasons this was so helpful for me when I was getting paid twice a month is because let's say you get paid on the 5th and like the 20th. All the expenses that you pay with your paycheck on the 5th should be highlighted one color. All the expenses that you're going to pay with your paycheck on the 20th should be highlighted a different color. That's a visual way for you to see very quickly what bills and expenses you plan on paying for each paycheck, because then you can create your paycheck budget around the colors and what you have planned on your calendar. But for me, like I said, I get paid once a month, which means everything is on my budget for the entire month. Now, when you are budgeting your money, I like to budget my paycheck about 1 or 2 days before I receive my paycheck. Now, if you're wondering, Miko, I don't know what my income is going to be. I'm an hourly employee, or I work some overtime and I don't really know what my paycheck is going to be. You always want to budget your income based on the worst case scenario or the least amount you expect to receive. That way, if you're budgeting for the worst case scenario, if you get extra income, great, you can put it towards financial goals, but at least you know you can cover your necessities and your variable spending. So for me, I am using something very new, a back to school envelope. So I do sinking funds for certain holidays and events throughout the year. I've been saving since January for my son's back to school expenses, and currently I have $256. Now, if you're wondering about my sinking funds cash envelope trackers, I color this in anytime I save money. Wah! But there's $256 here, which means I'm fully prepared with cash for that expense, which, let me tell you, as a mom, but not only that, as someone who relied on debt, that's really important. And the peace of mind of knowing that expense is taken care of is huge. So I'm going to be using that. So I included it as income on my paycheck budget. Here are all my bills for the month of September. A couple of things to point out. I do have a checking account cushion. I get a ton of questions about my checking account cushion. I am an all cash spender, which means I pay all of my regular recurring bills online. So I total all of these up. I budget what those are going to be. I have an amount that's left in my checking account. All my bills are on auto pay. I don't have to worry about paying them, and I know that the right amount is in there to cover them. But after that, I have money that I can use for variable spending. But very quickly, my cushion is meant because I work on a zero-based budget, which means every dollar of my income has a plan. My checking account gets depleted fairly quickly. And not only that, but it gets brought down pretty low because every dollar of your income is being spent. That made me feel really uncomfortable, especially as a mom. If something were to pop up with my son, or if I had to do online shopping for something that he needed for a sports activity or for something for school, it made it very difficult for me to go down to the bank and put more cash in the bank every time I spent money online. So I developed a checking account cushion. I do $280 every month. Now keep in mind that seems really high, but I became debt-free last year. And I decided one of my priorities was to increase the amount that I have sitting in my checking account. That's my checking account cushion. When I was paying off debt, it was only $80 a month. But your checking account cushion is for if you're an all cash spender and you shop online, use that checking account cushion and it's there. That way you don't have to keep running back to the bank to replenish your checking account. But it's also there for unplanned, unexpected expenses, or if bills are higher than expected. If you are suffering from overdraft fees, this will be your savior because you're no longer have to worry about depleting your account all the way down to zero. And then what happens if your utility bill is higher than normal and you weren't prepared for it? Now you'll have a buffer in your account. After all of my bills are paid online, I do the cash envelope method, and I use food, fun, gas, beauty, miscellaneous, household, clothing, and I am using back to school. Now, back to school is not usually part of my variable spending, but it is this month because, like I discussed, we're using that back to school envelope. So I pull all of this out in cash, and today we will be stuffing my cash envelopes and what that looks like for the cash envelope breakdown. But I went to the bank and I already pulled out all my cash to stuff my envelope with you guys today on YouTube. So all of my envelopes equal $1,311. All of my bills total $2,662. After my bills are paid, after my variable expenses, my cash envelopes are taken care of, I'm left with $1,015. Now, at this point, I get a lot of questions. Where do I throw this money? What do I do with it? What's the best place to put it? Should I pay off debt? Should I save some of it? So it's all about your financial priorities, and what's most important to you, your family, and your life. So for me, it's savings right now because I don't have any debt. My number one goal is buying my first home with cash. That's where all of my extra money is going. However, if you are paying off debt and that is your number one priority, but deep down in your gut, you also want to save for your emergency fund, you can do both. But ask yourself, what is the most important priority of those two? Maybe 95% of your leftover income goes towards paying off debt. The other 5% goes towards savings, but it should be amounts that you feel comfortable with and are at peace with, because if you don't feel that peace and that sense of confidence in the money decisions you're making, you'll never really feel successful with your money. So that's why I always get people ask me, well, how much should I do? I don't like to throw dollar amounts out there because every circumstance is different. Everybody's family life, lifestyle, goals, priorities, all of that is different for everybody. So I say, ask yourself what is most important. For me, it's savings. So I save for my future. These are my sinking funds. I save a little bit every single month to reach a goal in the future. And these are for holidays and events, much like you see with my back to school. Now I'm doing 4th of July. I also do my biggest birthdays of the year. So that would be my boyfriend's birthday and my son's birthday, Christmas, back to school, Valentine's Day, car maintenance, and we have a puppy fund. So after I know I'm going to be spending my son's back to school envelope. When do I start saving for it again? I start saving for this goal the month after I spend it. So I just start saving for it all over again for the next year, which is why you're seeing some of these 2020s on my sinking funds. So you might be asking also, how do I know which amount to save for these types of goals? You figure out how much you want to spend on that event or occasion or holiday, and you divide it by the number of months you want to save. That's how much you should be saving every single month to reach that goal in time. So all of my sinking funds are $279, which leaves me $736 left over of my income. And as I just told you, every dollar, every single penny I have is going towards my house savings. So I'm able to throw about $736 to my house savings. Now your budget, I like using the zero-based budget. Every dollar of your income has a plan, and I have that formula right down here. Your total income minus your expenses should be zero. That is the paycheck step, the paycheck budget, paycheck method part of my process. The next thing that you come to is the cash envelope method. After your budget is created, I fill out something called the cash envelope breakdown. And for me, this is all of my cash envelopes simply transferred from my budget to this worksheet. And it allows me to break down each envelope by denomination. So for instance, a lot of my sinking funds are odd amounts because it's, I'm saving a little bit each month, and sometimes they come up really odd amounts because my goal and the months I have left to save are all out of whack. So I like to know, if you were just to go down the bank and say, I need to pull out $1,294 from the bank, they would give you that, but it wouldn't necessarily be the denominations you need to stuff your specific cash envelopes. That's where the cash envelope breakdown comes into play. So I like to start from the biggest bill denomination and work my way down to the lowest. And here's the reason why. During my financial journey, I have found that you tend to spend the smallest bills first. It's almost like a psychological thing. It's a lot easier to hand someone a $10 bill than it is a $100 bill. And in fact, we're going to be talking about some money. I was able to save about $400 and something for my cash envelopes last month. Yes. And I realized a lot of that cash I was able to save was bigger bills that I didn't spend because I spent the smallest bills first. So that's just how I do it. So you literally, like for instance, food is $400. So I need to pull out 3 $100 bills and 2 50s. And you can do this however you want, whatever bill denominations you want. And eventually you make what's called a teller slip. And that's basically the quantity of the bills you need and the value of those bills. Now, if you are using the new Budget by Paycheck workbook, which you're seeing in this video, we are still having pre-orders going for this new Budget by Paycheck workbook. If you're using this, in the very back of the month, you're going to see little teller slips. And this, as you can see, this is where I cut out my first one. You get 6 of them per month, and that's because you have 5 paycheck bill trackers in the workbook. And we gave you an extra one in case you want to do it for vacation cash. I'm an all cash spender on my vacations as well, and I like to have a cash envelope breakdown for that. So once you have that, it's time to stuff your envelopes. I'm really excited. I'm going to show you also something very cool. So these are currently the cash envelopes that we just released this month. They're tear resistant, water resistant, and 100% reusable. And every single one has a hand-drawn custom design. They're beautiful and I love them. What's a little bit different about these, the envelopes are reusable. And then we made these little trackers that go inside. Now, usually my cash envelopes, you are used to seeing a tracker on the back like this. But these are just printables that you make at home. They're not reusable. Once you fill this out, then you can either, I suggest keeping them for tracking your spending and analyzing your spending in the future, but they're not reusable. So these ones, because you can use them over and over and over again, we added these little trackers that can be replaced on the inside, and that's what I'm gonna be using for my September budget. So today we're gonna be stuffing my cash envelope. So as I had mentioned, I went down to the bank and I have my cash ready. Now, the first thing that I do is I get my cash envelope breakdown ready, and I go to the first envelope, and I'm just gonna use my little tracker here. So there's my food budget, and I literally pull out what I wrote down on my cash envelope breakdown. So 3 $100 bills. Those are very crisp. Those can get stuck together. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and then 2 50s. 1, 2. So this one has been stuffed. Also, don't forget to write on your little tracker the amount that you are budgeting for that category. So I'm doing $400 for food. And now with that stuffed and your tracker filled out, that envelope has been stuffed and done, and you would do that for the remainder of your cash envelopes. So very quickly, I just stuffed my clothing envelope, and it has a budgeted amount of $60. However, I had money left over in my old clothing month from last month. I did not spend any money from my clothing envelope last month. I have $120 in here that I want to roll over into my new one. So I'm gonna just stuff this in the envelope, and on your tracker, when you do this, what you wanna do is you wanna write the date, which today is 8/30. I like to write rollover, and that just lets me know I'm rolling over cash from last period. We're adding 120. So rolling over 120, that gives you a new balance of $180. And now you know when you're spending your cash envelope, you have an updated balance of what's truly, even though you budgeted 60, you know that you rolled over and have a new balance. So that's what it looks like on your cash envelopes when you're rolling money over from last period. So now all of my my cash envelopes have been stuffed, and these are the variable spending cash envelopes for my budget. So all of these have been stuffed, but you might be thinking, well, Miko, you still have cash left. That's because I pull out cash, remember, for my sinking funds. So let me go ahead and show you those envelopes now. So these are currently my sinking funds savings envelopes. I have 4th of July, Christmas. This one is James's birthday, Valentine's Day. This is for my boyfriend's birthday, and our new puppy envelope. And each one has little trackers. It lets me know visually where I am on the progress of my goal. So I'm gonna get ready to stuff these ones now. So the puppy one, 40. Okay, so for my very last envelope, it's supposed to be back to school, which is $32, which I have here. I just didn't create a new envelope yet. So this is the time, because I'm starting to save for it after I'm using it this month, is where I would create a new envelope. So I'll do that tonight and get that new envelope so I can put this in there. So I'm just gonna set that one with this. So all of my sinking funds have now been stuffed, and I'll go ahead later on today and color in any lines that I can on my visual trackers. So that's stuffing your sinking funds, and that is the cash envelope part of my method. And you know how much you have left to spend in each of your categories based on your little trackers inside of your cash envelopes. So once all of that is done, then really you are 100% prepared and have a plan for your dollars up until your next paycheck, or in my case, I have the whole month planned out. So that is my full budget overview for September. If you found this video helpful, please like it and don't forget to subscribe.